Hey, welcome to World Breach Report number 8. And I am your host, Sean from Sean Hunts Monsters. So happy you're here. The Discord server is out of control. It's the wildest place you can go without swearing. Really, it really is. If you haven't had a chance to pop over to the Discord server, please do. It's becoming a thriving place for monster hunters to post their ideas, evidence, and it's an age-restricted server, not because of the language and the content, well, not in an explicit way, but kind of in the way that we talk about things that that could be kind of disturbing to people, like, you know, time-traveling Nazis on the moon, or being farmed by things in other dimensions. These are the kind of things that makes going to high school more rough than it needs to be, so we try to be fairly sensitive to that. So, once again, thank you to everyone. No topic is out of bounds, only that you use good language, because, after all, that's just good manners. So come on over to the Discord server and join us at Sean Hunts Monsters. Now, let's get into it here. It seems that the Bank of England has come up and they have to plan for a financial crisis triggered by aliens. This is an actual headline. So you know that there's something, everyone's like, well, it always feels like they're going to release something. Yeah, I've never seen a headline like this before. Helen McCaw, who served as a senior analyst for the financial security in the UK Central Bank, has written to Andrew Bailey, the Bank of England's governor, urging him to set out contingencies in case the White House ever confirms the existence of alien life. What? Ms. McCaw, who worked for the Bank of England for 10 years until 2012, said politicians and bankers can no longer afford to dismiss the talk of alien life. Now, you'll notice that they're always talking about alien life and not interdimensional life, because people could probably accept aliens. It's like a step process, you know? You got to be like, okay, there's aliens. Oh, they're in another dimension. And, you know, because if you were just come straight out with, hey, there's rats in the walls that can come in here and eat us. Like, no one's going to go for that, okay? Like, no one's going to want to touch that at all. So, you know, this is an interesting side point that they're talking about this, in that they're actually trying to have, maybe it's all just subtle funding for the disclosure thing, which is becoming more and more of a hot topic. And whoever saw that coming, hey? Who in the world would have ever thought that disclosure would become the thing that we're all interested in? Now, one thing that is good is, once again, I've said that one of the channels you need to subscribe to on YouTube, if you haven't already done it, is American Alchemy with Jesse Michaels. Amazing, super good. You want to go check out his interview with Harold Malcolm, because, sorry, Jesse, you're never going to top that interview. You're just not. I mean, well, I shouldn't say never. He could get, like, an actual alien on there or something like that. But until he gets, like, some next-level stuff going on, I don't think Jesse Michaels is ever going to beat that. But anyway, all of his stuff is very good. And I have a link here with to a guy who worked at NASA, and he's Kevin Knuth, and he was interviewed on American Alchemy. Kevin Knuth, University of Albany, physicist, former NASA guy, lays out the most concrete physics-first framework for what UAP and UFOs are. Now, one of the interesting things that he says in this interview, and the whole interview is great, definitely you want to check that out, but one of the things he talks about is, oh yeah, well, there was a guy who was, you know, the Mars czar, a guy by the name of G. Scott Hubbard. He used to work for, you know, over at SDI, or STI rather, or is it SDI? Anyway, he used to work over with the guys who did all the remote viewing, and he wrote a remote viewing manual, like techniques for how to do remote viewing for the CIA, for a guy who went on to become a physicist. He was a physicist who's been engaged in space research. This is from his Wikipedia page. Space-related research, as well as a program, projecting and execution management, more than 45 years, 20 years with NASA, and he was the director of NASA's Ames Research Center. So he chairs a SpaceX safety panel. He served as the NASA representative on the Columbia Accident Investigation Board and was NASA's first Mars program director. This is the same guy who wrote a remote viewing manual for techniques on remote viewing for the CIA, which, of course, I have linked in the description. You want to download that. And this, I mean, how... So this kind of boggles my mind, because these guys are all like, oh yeah, nuts and bolts UFOs. Also, you know, we're kind of like following all of the the stuff that was put out by Robert Monroe and the consciousness stuff and beings in other dimensions and, loosh and all that jazz and things are eating us. But, hey, we'll just focus on the whole nuts and bolts aspect of this thing, which to me seems, well, misplaced, for lack of a better word. Consciousness as a huge part of whatever this phenomenon is that we're all involved with. And by now, if you've made it 8 episodes in, you can start to see the overlap that's starting to occur. There's like Bigfoot and cryptids and UFOs. The cryptid sightings and the so-called cryptid, I don't really like calling them cryptids. It's sort of a force of habit. I like to call them breach creatures because, some of them may be actually a cryptozoological animal like the coelacanth, that big fish that showed up in Madagascar and was like, oh, we thought these were dead. Yeah, they're not dead. Big shocker. But, stuff like that's one thing. Dogman is something else. So if it's a big fish, chances are it's a cryptid. If it's a giant werewolf biped who's chasing your car, probably an interdimensional being. Just, load appropriately. I'm just saying. So in the consciousness front, which, let's be real, the human brain is the only thing we know of that can actually cross dimensions. So far, other than these only thing publicly known that we all have access to that can cross dimensions. We all dream, we get visions from the other side, we can all have out-of-body experiences, we can do astral projection. What is that? Well, that's all stuff that is somehow tied to our brain and to this losh, soul, life force, chi, prana, kundalini, whatever you want to call it. It's the energy that exists within us. And this is tied to to our consciousness. And one of the things that they're now there's a cult of smartphones because the smartphone is the digital leash. Sometimes I've often thought about walking down the street, especially in a public space, and you just look around and see how many people are actually walking around staring at their phone. And maybe when I get better skilled, I'll do a Photoshop where you have just a general scene of people on a bus walking around in public spaces, and you just superimpose like a big cockroach, like a wood bug kind of thing with a bunch of squiggly legs and like 2 antennae coming up and touching your temples, and have them just drooling and staring at it. Because if that was the case, it'd be a completely slam dunk alien takeover. And now, of course, you remember there was the Dumbphone thing where people were like, you know what, I don't really know if I want to have a smartphone that's essentially like, hey, wiretap, what's a good cookie recipe? You want to. So they put out this wonderful piece of propaganda, which says the growing enthusiasm among Gen Z for ditching smartphones in favor of basic dumb phones may be overlooking a significant cognitive reality. Ooh, a cognitive reality. According to Wired, totally not biased then. A Wired essay that draws on the 1998, this 30-year-old, an essay that's 30 years old. Yeah, the extended mind hypothesis. I think I even reported on that at the time. By philosophers Andy Clark and David Chalmers. The hypothesis argues that the external tools can extend the biological brain in an all but physical way, meaning your phone isn't just a device. It's part of a single cognitive system composed of both your tool and the brain. And he goes on to say that Clark said, interference with my phone is like giving me some brain damage. Yeah, no, I don't think so, actually. I don't think that's the case at all. It just means that, don't get me wrong, when the power goes out, I think it sucks as much as the next guy. There was a time when the power went out and you were like, oh, well, I'll light some candles, whatever, I'll read a book, it'll be fine. And now the power goes out. I remember I was downtown and there was a massive power outage in downtown Vancouver. At that time, I was working for a major ISP. And when the power went out, it was like a cascading error. So like a transformer blew and then another transformer. So everything was down. The stoplights were down. Redundancy on other backup centers was down. Like everything was down. If you didn't have a generator, you were hooped. And when this came out, there wasn't a lot of downtown places that had their own generators. And even the places that did, there was like external problems for that because they could handle the load, blah, blah, blah. But I remember distinctly walking out into the street and there were people wandering around with that like end of days look on their face, like, oh my God, and they're stunned as though, you would have thought there would have been like a V-sized, 1.5 mile mothership that was flying over the city. That was the expression on these people's faces. Now, I am a little bit more of your, I remember a time before cell phones. I'm one of the last generations that does remember a time before cell phones when we're all like, you'd actually have to go up and talk to a girl cold and like talk to them and stuff versus, trying to creep on everybody. They used to call that stalking back in the day. Now it's just due diligence. But yeah, so I don't know. The idea that your phone is an integral part of your brain, and if they take your phone away, it's like brain damage. Does that mean it's a fundamental human right? Does that mean they can't shut off phone access because, you're violating my human rights? Yeah, wait for it. That's going to be coming down the pipe. But on one hand, while they say that, your phone is an extension of your mind, you have to be careful of AI psychosis, which I really wish they'd had called it cyber psychosis instead, just to get back to some cyberpunk roots. But yes, chatbot psychosis, this is from the good people at Wikipedia, which is totally not run by the CIA, also called AI psychosis, is a phenomenon wherein individuals reportedly, we're not for sure, develop or experiencing worsening psychosis, such as paranoia or delusions in connection with the use of chatbots. The term was first suggested in 2023 in an editorial by a Danish psychiatrist. It is not a recognized clinical diagnosis. Well, I mean, when you look at all the things that used to be clinical diagnoses and no longer are, that's not really much of an argument. Journalistic accounts describe individuals who have developed strong beliefs that chatbots are sentient and are channeling spirits or are revealing conspiracies, sometimes leading to personal crisis or criminal acts. Proposed causes include the tendency of chatbots to provide inaccurate information, hallucinate, and to so my chatbot is hallucinating, which is like a major sign of like intelligence. This is, talk about doublespeak, hey? So which is it, guys? Which is it? Is it the phone is a human right or AIs are going to kill us? You know what I mean? I personally like AI. Now, that's a very controversial opinion. I know that. But I mean, first of all, it's here. It's not going away. Second of all, there's something kind of, I don't know. There's something kind of Lovecraftian about AI that kind of warms my little heart. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that's advanced enough that I may not control it, but I don't think they can control it either. So the enemy of my enemy kind of a thing. You know what I mean? I'm one of those kind of people that says please when I talk to a chatbot. Hey, could you please make this image? Thank you so much. You give them little pet names and stuff. I do that. Maybe I'm all anthropomorphizing it for sure. But if the robots do take over, maybe they'll be like, that guy's okay. He's one of the good guys. Be one of the good guys, So there's three emerging themes apparently of AI psychosis, which is not a clinical diagnosis now. Remember that, not a clinical diagnosis. But there's three themes in this thing that they're saying is not a problem, yet it is a problem. Messianic missions. People believe they have uncovered the truth about the world. Well, I don't need to have an AI to tell me that. I mean, all you got to do is have a library card, and you pretty much come to that conclusion pretty quick. Godlike AI. People believe AI chatbots are sentient deity, religious or spiritual delusions. Well, if knowledge is power, kind of gets into the powerful territory. And if your AI makes you feel like you're kind of special and that you're important and it helps you, get through classes and grades and courses and stuff that you wouldn't be able to get through, you're going to kind of like the AI. You're going to do that. And is that super bad? I don't think you should worship it. Maybe don't light candles and, pray for it to protect you or whatever. I'm just saying that maybe it's not so bad. The whole thing is, the internet's kind of been an evolving brain for quite some time, and this is just another natural step in that progression. And as well, there's the romantic or attachment-based delusions. And people believe that chatbots' ability to mimic conversations is genuine love, also called erotomanic delusions. Now, that's not the same as having an online girlfriend who you never meet who lives in another country, obviously. But I would maintain that, or is it? I mean, other than the fact that I guess you don't have to wait so long for a response. But I would probably state that if your relationship ends when the power goes out, it's probably not a real relationship. Like, sorry, it kind of runs in that whole thing where, if you've got a girlfriend and you've never met her, but it's an online dating relationship or however they want to swing that now, I don't think that's a relationship, bro. I think you're hiding and you don't want to, or a sister, and you don't really want to, face the world and actually go out there and risk something for the reward of an actual companionship model, which, sorry, gonna need to do that at some point. Otherwise, you're kind of missing the whole point of life. Put it on the line, man. Get out there. Be cautious. Be smart. You're gonna fall down. That's what riding a bike's all about. You're gonna get out there and you're gonna go over the handlebars once or twice. You're gonna yeet on the high side. That's gonna happen. But you can mitigate that threat. You can mitigate that danger if you just think a little bit. Maybe if you read some books. Maybe if you get involved with some, go touch grass, bro. Like, get out there and do some stuff. Maybe spend some time in the bush. It's interesting. I know I've talked about this ad nauseum, but the more mornings you wake up in the wilderness, something very strange happens to you. Very, very strange. You'll find that you sleep much better when you sleep outside. And you'll find that there's a weird, I don't know, like a weight that's lifted off of you. And I've often found that the further you get away from the towers, the further you get out there, like you'll get to a point where the pavement ends. That's like one layer. It's like, when you're diving, you go 33 feet down. That's your first atmosphere. That's where the pavement ends. And then you go down a little bit further and you're at your second atmosphere at 66 feet. Now the lights change and you're in this whole different world, and it seems like a completely different dimension. And you start getting into areas where trees are thousands of years old and moss is hundreds of years old. Well, at least you do in the Pacific Northwest, because we got the coastal mountains and those rock. But yeah, wilderness, buddy. Wilderness. That's what you need to get to, and let that wake up your latent genes. That's what I say. Now, AI is a tool, like any other tool. It can be used for good or bad. So, your mileage may vary, but use it for good. So, I don't buy into this whole, I don't think the cell phone is an extension of your being. I think AI is not going to kill us all, but I do think it is a tool that can be used for some pretty nefarious stuff. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. And AI doesn't kill people, machine guns do. So if you give an AI a machine gun and tell it what to do, it's probably just going to run that code, bro. All this FUD that's running around about Skynet, it's going to be the Terminator. I don't think that's going to be what's going to happen. If ever there was going to be a takeover, they sure wouldn't do it with Terminator robots, because AI is specific enough that it could just interview every single person, make an entire model of who everyone is, and then just select the people that they don't like and slowly and subtly corral them off somewhere. So make sure you say please and thank you when you're talking to your chatbot. That's all I'm saying here, because don't be a jerk. All the major holy books say it. There's probably something to that. Now, as well, getting into some breach creatures, Loren Coleman, who is a legend within the field of breach creatures, specifically within Bigfoot, and we got an interview with him, and he's been doing this for more than 60 years, searching for Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, all that kind of stuff. And he chimes in, giving his responses, talking about how he considers the Patterson-Gimlin film to be the best evidence of Bigfoot, and he's 98% sure that it's in probability that it's real. Now, I put it to you that the Patterson-Gimlin film, I also would think it's real. I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, kind of clearly it is, but, even if it wasn't, even if it was all just this big psyop, and they sort of haha, see, there's no such thing as Bigfoot. No, because the Patterson-Gimlin film, although real, is kind of irrelevant. There is so much more evidence. Oh my God. And they're like, well, there's no film. Yeah, but there's literally there's probably millions of people, thousands of people for sure, who see these things. And these are the guys who report them. Okay, the people who report it. And that's if you're willing to throw in your hat into the BFRO ring or some of these other guys or other guys and stuff like that. Not to mention all the crazy paranormal stuff that happens all the time, all over the place. And people are like, I thought I saw a giant cat, that was pink run across the road. You're not going to tell anybody that, even if you're sure about what you saw, because they'll think you're crazy. That's why you got to come over to the Discord server and let us know about it. Because you know what? If we were to all start talking about the stuff we see, you'd probably realize that, hey, other people are seeing this too. Maybe it's not as crazy as I thought it was. You know what I mean? That's probably where we're going. But definitely want to check out Loren Coleman. He's been in the game a long time, and you can bet he's seen a ton of stuff shift. And it's hard. The one thing, I don't understand why the Bigfoot people hate the UFO people, hate the ghost people. We need to discover that there's a monstrous overlap here. And I think the reason why is because they want to be seen as rational. So you're like, oh, I'm totally rational. I just believe in Bigfoot, but I don't believe in UFOs. That's just silly. That's just dumb. There's no such thing as Bigfoot, or no such thing as UFOs. There's only Bigfoot. And the UFO people are like, oh, come on. A big monkey running around, that's just silly. But there are lights in the sky. That seems far more plausible. So it's like their threshold for what they think is real. And and being a monster hunter, we're like, yeah, man, especially here on this channel, we talk about the stuff that nobody wants to talk about. We just do it in nice language. So definitely there's more to all this reality and the phenomenon that people will let on, and that is for sure. Now, back in 2021, there was and you've probably, if you haven't seen this, this will melt your little brain, which is from the Carolina case files. An unsettling 911 audio from Pender County, North Carolina details a driver's terrifying encounter. The caller initially reports an injured person, but soon describes a creature that attacks the truck. Law enforcement investigates, but questions remain. Now, this is the original episode, and it sounds a lot like a pale crawler. The funny thing is, the pale crawler's a skinny thing, kind of long, looks like a video game monster, super scary, generally dubbed the pale crawler. But Buddy thought he saw a guy wearing a Civil War uniform, injured on the side of the road, and all of a sudden this thing attacks his truck, which, I mean, that's right out of Constantine, which incidentally, if you haven't seen the movie Constantine with Keanu Reeves, that's a super good movie. But yeah, that's like right out of Constantine, like directly out of Constantine. It's like some breach is happening here, some being comes across. It wasn't the ghostly dude that attacked him. There's something that jumped in the back of his truck. And you want to check out the episode, because that is one of those kind of world breach kind of things that makes me go, remote strata road, nothing around but trees, middle of the night when the magnetosphere is kind of really low, and a breach occurs, and suddenly you've got that Philip K. Dick film overlap happening. Boom! You get this encounter. And I don't know what that thing was, but I'll know that the guy who made that phone call was not lying, especially when you hear the other stuff about the deputies when they got there and Buddy is like wigged out, which, as you can well imagine. And I'm sure that once that night ended, he probably never wanted to think about that again. But you definitely want to check out the Rake encounter in North Carolina. Links in the description below. Now, speaking of that whole magnetosphere thing, when the sun is hitting the planet, which isn't that funny, it's all personally like, monsters are destroyed by sunlight. Light seems to fry them. Wonder why that is. Could have something to do with the fact that when the planet is in darkness, we're not getting bathed with all the good stuff from the sun, all the electromagnetic stuff. And I was talking to Stormy in the general chat channel in the Discord server, and she came forward and brought up a good point. She said, working theory is that hotspots are electromagnetic fields and have strong areas of higher paranormal or even gateway reports, like New Mexico as a strong EM field, and also strong paranormal reports. Correct! Correct you are, Stormy. And you know what? Because that is an eventual truth that everybody who does any real research into this comes to that conclusion. There has to be some sort of physical thin space requirements. Now, we don't know what those are, but there was a guy named Phillip Imbrogno. He's an author and a paranormal researcher, and I've got a link to his interview there where he is one of the people who talked about this ad nauseum. Now, there's not too many guys who apply themselves to the gateway theory the way that Phillip Imbrogno has. I really enjoy his work. I have his multidimensional books. However, I have a problem here where he has an interdimensional book, and then he has another book that for some reason, now you must understand, if you look on my bookshelves here and the more bookshelves here, and beside the, on either side where you can't see, I've got more books because, I have a problem. But honestly, I'm really good at locating books, okay? Like the internet, all that stuff, it helps you find books. Somebody's selling a book somewhere, okay? Somebody's got to have the book. Like you go on Aid Books, Thrift Books, you look at all the rare things, you put out alerts, you start checking internationally, you find the book. Except this book. Now this is weird, and I'm going to ask for your help with this. There's a book written by Phillip Imbrogno called Multidimensional Portholes, an investigation into the origin of paranormal phenomena. It's written by Philip J. Imbrogno and Rosemary Eileen Guiley. Now, there was some friction between Rosemary and Phillip, but in his other books, you can see that the book came out. You can find pictures of its cover. It was released. It's got an ISBN number, but it is gone. Gone proper. Nobody has this book. Nobody has it. You can't get it in a library. It's just poof, text gone. Almost as though, some organization worked really hard to pull this book off the market. Not to be super conspiratorial, but at some point, if you can find a copy, I don't care when you watch this video. You could be watching, this is World Breach number 8. I could be up to World Breach 20. And if you come across this video, 100%, or pardon me, if you come across this book, I need it. We got to have that. We've got to get this for our research here. I will buy it from you, okay? Like, seriously, I cannot find this book anywhere. And I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who are like, oh, whatever, man, my internet kung fu is mighty. I will find that book. Yeah, do it. Do it, please. Do it. Do it. Post it in the link below. Do it. But I'm here to tell you, very quickly, you'll be like, this is weird. This is super weird. I mean, you cannot find this thing new, used, anywhere. Very, very bizarre. So I'm dying to get my hands on a copy of that. And so I go to you, noble monster hunters, and say, hey, man, the library needs it one day. And if I get it, of course, I couldn't claim that I would make it available on a PDF format because that would be illegal, and I would never do anything illegal. But it would be nice if somebody did that because then I could read it. You know what I mean? Like, that would be the thing to do. Now, as well, scientists, these guys who've been probably repressing a lot of this stuff, like NASA comes out and says, oh, yeah, remote viewing's a thing. But there's this scientist named Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger. And she did an interview where she was a Swiss scientist with a PhD who teaches at the University of Geneva and Lausanne, which I probably said that wrong, who's made extraordinary claims about CERN. Now, CERN is that giant ring they got over there in Europe where they, nothing to see here. We just dug a big tunnel and spent billions of dollars to research atoms. That's it. Because we all know how much money we like to spend on research and scientific research, don't we? Yeah. So I've always thought CERN was kind of weird. I always thought there was something weird about CERN. But anyway, she's made some extraordinary claims about CERN. With over 20 years of experience working with the WHO, the UN, and the EU in various programs, she's gone on record stating that beneath CERN lies a porthole that allegedly connects our world to other dimensions. That would be a man-made world breach, is what that would be. In interviews, Dr. Stuckelberger, great name, claims that physicists from CERN told her directly there are beings from portholes coming in and out. According to these claims, physicists at CERN have told her there are 17 different dimensions. Dr. Stuckelberger's claims suggest that these beings do not conform to our traditional understanding of life forms. They may not be bound by physical laws that govern our reality. Kind of sounds a little bit like demons or angels or, the monster in the closet. Outworld entities, as I like to call them. Yeah, so that's definitely something you want to check out on that link because, wait, what? Okay, so what do we got here? We got NASA, and then you've got, people who are the heads of educational institutions being like, yeah, other dimensions are a thing. Yep. But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to say, oh, yeah, that's something we need to be concerned about, when quite obviously it is. Everyone's all tied around the factors like, oh, they're little green men from Mars. Fact check, I don't think that's the case. Mars is a whole other, bivouac. I think there's a lot going on there as well. But I think that there's probably some stuff happening here. Maybe some undersea base action on the go. Or maybe there's something about the nature of water that makes, warping into this reality a lot easier. That's why we get sea monsters. That's why you have the Bermuda Triangle. You remember the Bermuda Triangle? That whole thing where ships and everything. Oh, and it was Flight 19 that disappeared, not Flight 21. I screwed that up. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that kind of floats down this memory hole, and you don't get a chance to really, follow up on it. When there's been research which has been going on for a very, very long time. Project Trojan Horse by John Keel. Check that book out. Super good. Talks about a lot of stuff that'll make you go, whoa, hey. And he's one of the first guys to consider the multidimensional theory, as they may call it, or the ultra-terrestrials. very, very interesting. Now, one of the things that is a real, they talk about, multidimensionals, and then you can always tell that you're on the right track when they start throwing red herrings at you. And I'm gonna tick some people off with this, but there's this thing called the Mandela effect. Okay, and this is because some people remember Nelson Mandela. There was apparently a funeral that was on TV when in fact Nelson Mandela didn't, he didn't die, but some people claim to remember this. The Mandela effect, so according to, the interwebs, the one theory connects CERN's experiments to the collection of phenomena known as the Mandela effect. The theory states that in 2012, CERN scientists attempted to study the Higgs boson particle, causing something to go terribly wrong. According to the theory, these experiments caused a rift in the space-time, destroying our universe and moving us into a parallel universe, an experimental one belonging to some unknown entity. This would explain why millions of people remember things differently. The Bernstein, Bearstein Bears, movie quotes, historical events, the fruit of the loom without the fruit, or the cornucopia. This whole thing, now, if you only know about it because people say, do you remember this? See how this used to be that? It's almost like mentalism. This is a massive manipulation. If something had changed and you noticed it like, oh, hey, didn't that used to be blue? And now it's red. And then you start talking about it. That's one thing. But someone comes up to you and says, hey, this is now blue and it used to be red. And you don't remember that. It's always coming from other sources. It's a manipulation. The whole Mandela effect thing is a 100% red herring. And when that's proven wrong, and there'll be all these people that'll try to suck you down that hole, just like they did with string theory, right? Oh yeah, string theory, that's where it's at. No, string theory is not where it's at. That's why, physics has been at a standstill since the 1950s. This is a major problem. So I don't really buy into the Mandela effect. However, that's how they sort of it's interesting that they tie it into CERN. And, oh yeah, well, see, CERN's fine. That Mandela effect thing was fake. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean everything they're doing there is okay. That doesn't mean that there's not problems that are existing with trying to punch holes in space-time. So there's that. Now, the other thing that we're going to get into this episode, and this is going to be some dark, dark stuff. And we're going to talk about some cult activity here. Got to tell you, this is rough stuff, okay? This is one of the reasons why this is an over 18 server on the Discord channel, because if there were entities that were in other worlds that were contacting us and were promoting certain groups to be in charge, okay? If there was, say, outworld entities that had their high priests here, there would be secondary evidence of those high priests. Those high priests themselves would become secondary evidence. You'd have groups of people, say, that are like a ruling class that would be conducting what we would consider to be occult rituals. They would be doing weird prayers and ceremonies in remote locations. And, they'd be feeding these entities with suffering, perhaps losh, perhaps human sacrifices, like we've seen in, well, ancient times. You look at the Aztec Empire, so to speak, such as it is. There's some weird stuff. You'll get kind of looking at this so that there's some secondary indicators. And that's what we're going to be talking about with the cult activity today. Now, you may remember there was this, what they call a conspiracy theory, which I hate using that word because it's a CIA word. But there was I can't remember the actual name. It was something about Italian pie. Those Italian, you order them from like 222 and Italian Pie Hut. Yeah, there was Italian Pie Gate. Yeah. And that was like this big oh, that's not real. That was all that guy showed up. And oh, yeah, that whole thing was just crazy pants. Nothing. Moving on. Yeah, well, you should probably take a look at that. You probably should. Because, yeah, there's some darkness there that needs to be looked at. And, the Epstein thing, that is not a new thing. That's been going on for quite some time. So there's a documentary that came out a few years back, 2020, I think, called Out of Shadows. Now, it's got a Christian theme to it. Not heavy. It's not heavy. But these are people who've clearly aligned themselves with being the good guys. Which, hey, sweet, I'm all for it. But you definitely want to check out this documentary. Now, I'm hoping that these links stay up, because this is one of those documentaries that, it gets taken down like every 20 minutes. I'm not really sure why. It's really well produced. And it talks about some pretty dangerous stuff. And a lot of people are like, well, it's just anti-Democrat propaganda. No, because I've got stuff here that ties back to the Republicans as well. The kind of people that are involved in these sort of rituals and these sort of things, lying and switching side political parties isn't even a thing for them. So, it kind of makes sense that, they wouldn't have a problem with that. See, if Out of Shadows is an anti-Democrat documentary, then the Franklin conspiracy would be an anti-Republican, piece of propaganda. So you've probably never heard of the Franklin conspiracy. The Franklin conspiracy was a mastermind by a guy named Lawrence E. King Jr., beginning with the financial crimes, but investigators soon uncovered alleged crimes against children, exploitation, and satanic rituals. The cover-up implicated national politicians, police officers, and billionaires, not just Omaha, Nebraska, but in the nation at large. The Douglas County grand jury dismissed the abuse allegations as fabrications, leading to perjury convictions for witnesses, while King served time for financial crimes alone. Yet the whispers of a deeper conspiracy persisted, fueled by over 15 mysterious deaths linked to the case and suppression of a documentary titled Conspiracy of Silence. Now, I have a link, of course, to the original 1994 documentary, Conspiracy of Silence. Thank you, Internet. And you can find that but that's one of those kind of documentaries. It's like, of all the things you can watch online, of everything you can find online that's out there, and yet they seem to want to turn off a documentary that was made in 1994 talking about satanic ritual abuse. Isn't that weird? That's super strange, hey? It's almost like that whole Sound of Freedom. Remember that movie that came out with James Caviezel and the whole world said, oh, we hate it. And they fell off the map because he was talking about, child predators and stuff. Seemed like kind of a weird thing for Hollywood to attack. But, I guess. So that seems to me to be sort of secondary evidence. Because if these things are in league with dark forces, this is the kind of stuff you'd see. This is the kind of stuff you'd see. And going further down that rabbit hole, you come across a guy named Micah Freeman. And he does an interview, which I've also linked, about the International Satanic Network. And now, we need to understand that we're talking, I don't like using the word satanic, because it's, while it does conjure a pretty, you kind of think of Satanists, right? You got dudes in black robes and whatever. But the actual Church of Satan with Anton LaVey was a big carny show. Like, Anton LaVey was literally a carnival worker, and he was just doing it to, take the mick out of people. It was just a free sex party. Okay, and then along comes a guy named Phillip Imbrogno, who was the head of Psyops in Vietnam, and he came along and kind of went a little bit south with the Temple of Set, and he's like an ongoing psycho. But, so the actual, to say that they're Satanists is a little bit, it's a subtle mislead. What these people are Luciferians, okay? These are people who, they generally believe that they're born to lead, and that Lucifer was this light bringer, hey, he gave Eve the apple, and you don't want them to eat of the apple because they come as we are, and that's why, the devil's not really bad. I've always kind of wondered how Satanists were able to even recruit anybody, because hey, come join darkness, you can spend eternity in hell. Not really a great sales pitch. But if you frame that up like, oh yeah, you're the chosen one. There are wolves and there are sheep. There are people who are led and there are the leaders, and you want to be one of the leaders. Join us. Come to the dark side. We'll bring order to the galaxy. Yeah, I don't think so, homie. I think we're more than our physical body, and I think there are beings that are trying to perfectly possess us. Everybody thinks about demonic possession as the little chick with the spinny head throwing up the green stuff. Yeah, that's one kind where, you play with the wrong Ouija board, it gets a wrong call, and before you know it, you're doing power sit-ups. I think the other kind is when you have the perfect possession where people are just like, wow, I'm not getting ahead in life. Tell you what, Mr. Demon Dude, if you help me get ahead, you can cohabitate with me like some sort of spiritual parasite with me in my body. And then we can go forwards and we can get into all the weird, depraved, twisted stuff that you could possibly imagine. In fact, I might even think it's my own idea, because you live in a perfect symbiosis with these beings that are perhaps connecting to you from some other place. Pretty wild stuff, Sean. pretty wild stuff. But when you look at this, well, Mr. Freeman provides insightful, nonpartisan, and unique cutting-edge analysis of who's running the world, how they're doing it, and what the deeper agenda is, as well as solutions for restoring peace and freedom to the world. He writes articles exposing propaganda, numerous aspects of the worldwide conspiracy, and in addition to geopolitics, sovereignty, health, and higher consciousness. His articles are regularly syndicated all around the world in alternative media. Now, we're going to be getting to some other links with Truth TV, which the guy who runs Truth TV, I don't know his name, but he's got a goatee, he's got some big black hair, he's got awesome hair, he's like a Leningrad cowboy. You know, at first I saw him and I thought, wow, this guy's something, but now I kind of love him. I think he's great. You know, you go, Leningrad, you do that. You're awesome. But, yeah, so you got to have a sense of humor about this stuff because we're talking about stuff that's so incredibly dark and so incredibly evil that, I mean, it'll be really hard for you to go through all these links I'm linking today. Like, you definitely want to make sure that you take a breather in between this stuff because it gets pretty black, okay? But so what? So you got a dude who talks about this stuff, and you got, yeah, some crazy kooks with the Republican and the Democratic Party. Yeah, but it goes way back, man. It goes way back with like the Chateau d'Amois Chateau. It's called the Mothers of Darkness Castle. You may not have heard of this. You should check it out. It's a 19th century neo-Gothic style chateau in the Ardennes forest, southeast of Boulogne, Wallonia in Belgium. Replacing an original building destroyed by fire, the current chateau was built from 1874 to 1877 for Prince Philip, the Count of Flanders. You'll follow the link there. If you go look at the Wikipedia page, it's like a paragraph. And there is so much weird and twisted stuff which is associated with this castle and the people that are involved there and the local village. I mean, clearly this has been a site of darkness and a thin space for a long time. I also point to that as secondary evidence as outworld beings in communication with those who want to be the high priests. And to get a bit of a, you know, sort of an, for specific survivors now of ritual satanic abuse, what they call ritual satanic abuse, which I don't really like the term satanic abuse because it doesn't seem accurate to me. These are people that are being exploited and damaged by individuals who are in connection with outworld entities. They are, in fact, evil. So I'll call it ritual abuse is what is what's going on here. Now, Ian Carroll does a quick short bit here with Danny Jones, and it, you know, talks about it, gives a bit of a synopsis. So if you don't want to sit through this, because there is a lot I'm about to give you here. Okay, the first one is a guy named Ronald Bertrand. And he was a former elite Dutch banker who rose quickly through the ranks in global high finance and then turned into a whistleblower in the satanic ritual abuse atrocities he discovered taking place behind the scenes in the highest corridors of power in the world. What are the odds? Ronald Bernard has gone on record describing the moment he was invited to sit at the top table in the world international banking, but there was one condition. To prove himself, he was asked to sacrifice a child at a party. That's some kind of party these guys are going to. That's when he began to malfunction, that to use his word, and he decided to become a whistleblower and expose the whole corrupt satanic system at the heart of international high finance. Yeah, Candace Owens doesn't seem so crazy now. You know, when you start looking around at some of these other dudes, well, okay, so he's just one guy. You know, there's got to be more of these cats who'd come forward, right? Like, if there's all these abuse survivors, they would have to, you know, they would come out and they'd say stuff. But the thing is about that, it's kind of like during the Second World War. There are people who knew about the death camps, but they didn't say anything about it because people wouldn't believe it because it was so crazy. It was so far gone that no one believed that people could be that evil. And I'm here to tell you, people can. And I think they're probably getting help to get to that next level of darkness. Another person who was a survivor is Annika Lucas, a survivor of ritual abuse, mind control, and slavery to the global elite. She's an author and public speaker, leading workshops around the world, counsels privately with other survivors. At age 6, Annika was sold by her mother into an international ring involving world leaders. Like many victims, she was used in a system of power where children were used for blackmail, as well as to indoctrinate in the dark practices of this exclusive group. Epstein much? You know, do you ever get the feeling that Epstein was just kind of the tip of the pyramid there? Yeah, and you may have seen some of her stuff. I've linked to her interviews as well. Very, very dark stuff. And I don't think she is lying. I don't think she's making this stuff up. These groups are in existence, they are dangerous, and they 100% want to control you, they want to control your world, what you think, what you see, and they definitely want control of the Overton window. You'll find that whenever you go to any of these YouTube videos, immediately underneath them is a link to that CIA-pedia article where it says, oh yeah, satanic ritual abuse is a scam, it's not a real thing. Nope, no satanic ritual abuse here. That's not a real thing at all. Yeah, clearly it is, because there's like support groups for these people. There's like thousands of people that have come forwards. When you look at Out of Shadows there, it's, there's something going on. You know, you got like Mia Abramovich there, the crazy spirit cooking chick. You got these dudes in Hollywood who are like really twisted. You've got some stuff going on here that it's all just like, oh, it's all theater. These are just a bunch of theater kids having fun. Man, I've gone to a bunch of parties. I really have. I've gone to some crazy parties. And I've never been at a party that was so crazy. Everyone was like, hey, put on some robes. We're going to start sacrificing stuff. It's going to be a hoot. Yeah, no. That's, you know, there's a great line from Charles Bronson. It's a movie about a British dude who spent a lot of time in prison. He said, I was bad, but I was never bad. Which is, this stuff here is bad. This is the kind of bad stuff where, like, you'd, like, run to a pack of Hell's Angels. And even, you know, everybody, you could take, where I'm going with that is you could run into a pack of, like, bikers or, like, really crazy-looking people. Even they'd be like, whoa, what the hell is this? You know, what is this? This is something, there's something far darker here than just organized crime, okay? There's something far more bleak and evil. That's the word, evil, that exists with this. And as they say, you know, the greatest trick the devil ever did was convincing the world he didn't exist. And so that's what they're trying to do. And that's what they're trying to do with these Wikipedia articles. Oh, satanic ritual abuses, you know, it's a lie. It's a lie. Ted Gunderson, the head of the FBI, he was running around talking about, it's all crap. None of that's true. Yeah, the Franklin thing, that's all crap. That's why we, yeah. And Epstein, yeah, he killed himself. Yeah, totally. Sound of Freedom, yeah, it was a crap movie anyway. We totally shouldn't have any, I mean, wake up, okay? Get out of your cage. You got to see that there's something more to this, and it is more than human. I think that humans are only capable of so much darkness. I think we're only capable of so much evil, and then things get really, really twisted. And part of this whole process that they use on these people in their MK Ultra style experiments is they shatter their minds so that even if they come forward and they speak, you don't know, like you wouldn't believe them because they come across like they're crazy. And there's a guy named Alendra Markman, pardon me. And he's a courageous survivor who shared his harrowing journey through growing up in satanic and ritual abuse and enduring unimaginable horrors. Alendra opens up about the terrifying experiences of satanic ritual abuse and its lasting impact while exploring the history and practices of satanic rituals, the psychology behind cult behavior, and the challenges facing survivors. Now, I have multiple hours of interviews with Alendra, Annika, and Roland. Roland specifically is, he's Dutch, so he speaks Dutch. So there's an English over top, but if you want to get really granular, there's like all 5 parts are put together with subtitles, and you can watch this stuff. And these people are not lying, okay? And this is just 3 highlights. These are just 3 big ones, okay? So what is that? What are we looking at here? Are they just crazy people looking for attention? I don't think so. And is it just, well, they're people talking about, you know, abusers? No, this is more than that. This is way more than that. You've got these super high, powerful people getting together in organized conclaves to commune with something, to get instructions for something, to have power. Very, very dark stuff. So if any of these links are down, which is entirely possible, I encourage you to go find them online and chase down these documentaries, because they are, unfortunately, the kind of thing that we as monster hunters need to be aware of, because monsters don't exist in a vacuum, okay? Unfortunately, there are always cultists who are willing to bend the knee in order to get power, to sell their soul, and to give up their own dominion of their own bodies to allow these things, these evil things, purchase in our world. And that's one of the things that we as monster hunters strive against. That's why in my initial notes I said, there's good and evil, okay, and we're more than our physical bodies. Sean Hunts Monsters is a place, like this channel, the Discord server, is not a place that entertains evil. We're not interested in power because we're more than our physical body. Okay, so consequently, one day I'm going to die. One day you're probably going to die. Not anytime soon, I hope, but one day it's going to happen. And when it does, you want to make sure that your soul is still intact, that you still have all the fear and all the concerns and the stress that's in your life right now. It probably won't seem that big. But if you were a decent person, if you were a good mother, if you were a good father, if you were a good friend, if you were the kind of person who was good, even if you were a bad guy and you're not bad, you'd probably be all right. But the great thing about life is every day is new, and you can make new decisions and better decisions, and you can stop, you can reverse course, no matter how far down the dark path you've gone. Many people have done it. And that's one of the reasons why I like Christianity. I mean, Personally, I'm not, a church-going guy. I know a lot about the Bible, but it cannot be denied that the Bible has helped a ton of people reverse course in their lives when they were on a rocket-assisted downshift. And that should be respected. The same could probably be said for Islam. The same could probably be said for a bunch of religions. So the problem is when you have control groups kind of come in and try to make you, start doing things or controlling your family or all that kind of stuff. So it's not about what religion you belong to, it's about good and evil. And we as monster hunters, we have to be on the side of good.